What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the King's Court podcast, presented to you by SacktownRoyalty.com and sponsored by RateCrushers.com. Everyone go to Rate Crushers for all of your insurance needs. Man, it's been a 3-game skid for the Sacramento Kings. It has not been fun over these last 3 games. Been kind of tough to watch, tough pill to swallow with their defense. But there's a game that's upcoming on Wednesday. And I didn't know anybody else to talk about this game with other than my boy, James. Boy, the Romeoville kid. James, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Yeah, man, things have changed a little bit. I got some different scenery now, but obviously I'm glad you have me on the show and got a lot to talk about.
Oh, man, do we have plenty to talk about? You know what? I think it's only right that I play this soundbite right here for you. You ready?
Go ahead.
Can you hear it?
I can.
It comes this Wednesday. It comes this Wednesday. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. It does. It does. It does.
Man, it's going to be a good game. Tyrese Haliburton coming back to Sacramento to face off against De'Aaron Fox. Everyone's eyes are going to be in on this game. I think that the matchup between Fox and Haliburton is going to be closely watched by Sacramento Kings fans. There's going to be so much Haliburton love in the arena. I'm excited for him to see that as well. But look, both teams are playing well, James. Both teams are surprising the league at this point. And you know, you've seen this Pacers team when they came into the season, not a lot of high expectations. How surprised have you been by the play that you've seen from this team, and more specifically Tyrese Haliburton?
I was not surprised by Tyrese. He was actually my pick for most improved. Just to let everyone know, I no longer am on the Pacers beat for the Indy Star. I cover the Colts now for the Athletic. However, I still watch plenty of the games, and honestly, I probably watched a few Kings games this year. I'm like just a general fan again. But that being said, he was my pick just as a fan to win most improved because I knew he would have a bigger role. However, obviously the emergence of Benedict Mathurin looking like, a rookie of the year candidate. And, even Andrew Nembhard, he had the big shot last night of the Lakers, but overall he's been pretty good this season. Those guys have been better than I expected so far. And I think that's really kind of, tied them together. And obviously Miles Turner being healthy is a big lift. And, man, like they're surprising me a lot because I figured they would, early on in the season, and even I probably still feel this way a little bit. It's like, okay, they win a couple games, doing all right. Like, when are they going to come back down to earth? And it's like, no, they're actually pretty decent, and they're beating the teams that they should beat, which is a sign of a pretty decent team. I'm not saying they're great, but very surprised that they're, above 500 and well above 500. I believe they're 12-8, at this point.
After a game winner last night in Los Angeles.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was watching the game on my phone in the press box after the Colts game. And I was like, all right, I got to watch the end and I'll get back to work. And I, let out an audible gasp, like, oh my gosh, he actually hit that. And so that was, a fun game, fun ending to that game. But on the flip side, I'm sure you'll talk about it as well. I kind of feel the same way about the Kings. It's like, man, like people were ready to tell them like, oh, you made this trade, you're going to be terrible, yada, yada, yada. And then De'Aaron Fox was like, keeping receipts on everybody. And he's looking like an all-star as well. Same as with Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Sacramento Kings have been one of the biggest surprises out in the West. The Pacers being the biggest surprise out in the East. It's their offenses, man. Their offense just is so fluid right now. Defense for both teams have been subpar, to say the least. More so for the Kings, I think, rather than the Pacers. By the way, that Pacers game yesterday, let me tell you, that left me with a stomachache. I just couldn't. As a betting man, I needed the Lakers to cover. As a betting man, I needed the Lakers to just win the game. They were up by 16 with 3 minutes left, and hey, shout out to the Pacers though for just making it a game. That was if I'm gonna lose anyone, I'm glad it's the Tyrese Haliburton finding the open Nembhard for a big 3-pointer. But look, the matchup that I love seeing right now is going to be the fans that say the Kings should have kept Tyrese Haliburton, and the ones that say it was a fair trade. I think it's obvious now this was the most fair trade you could have ever asked for in terms of value for value. Now, maybe the upside for Tyrese is what people were really hoping, but it wasn't necessarily working next to De'Aaron Fox. That's the one thing that was true that we've seen throughout that time, right? So I think this is the one time you can look at this and say it was fair across both sides because with that trade and getting and including Buddy Hield in that deal, you had the money to go out and get a Malik Monk and go and trade for a Kevin Herter. So without those moves, getting that trio that now is big roles in this team and their success, I mean, it would have never happened. So I think that finally we can all move past and say both sides benefited from this trade, correct?
I think so. The one thing that I always, and especially I guess having the reporter hat on in some sense, is like you gotta not be so emotional when things first happen. Like obviously when the trade first went down, it's like, oh my gosh, like the Pacers swindled the Kings and they just, got everything, the Kings ransom, whatever. But I think that it's also important to realize like just because De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton are like two, I think, great players and they're separate entities, doesn't mean it's going to work. And that's okay. Like, it's not like it's this huge negative thing where it's like, one guy ran the other guy to town. Like, I'm pretty sure they have a great relationship. When they were here in Indy last season, they talked for a long time before the game. They still, are very cordial. I'm assuming friends. But, by moving Tyrese to Indy, he can blossom here. And then by giving De'Aaron Fox just the keys, you've seen that he's taken that next step as well to being being what people thought he could be in this league. And I think that, if this trend continues, we could very well see both of them getting their first All-Star nod this season. And then that to me would kind of cement that this was indeed, an even trade. And again, like you said, you're going for certain needs that your team, are kind of missing. So for the Pacers, that was that ball handler, that outside presence to kind of, be a shot creator and things like that. And then for De'Aaron, it's like, just give me some space and some shooters and let me do my thing. And that's what he's been doing. And it's been great to see. And I think that, again, a lot of people want to jump to conclusions right at the end, but it's like, right at the beginning, rather. But it's like, dude, give us some time. And now you're seeing it. And now everyone wants to backtrack and like, oh, I don't know who won it. Like, you don't always have to win or lose a trade in a sense. Like this, like you said, it really is one of the most, balanced trades I think in recent, NBA history. Obviously, if you want to look at one that's terrible, you look at the Timberwolves, and you can kind of say
Oh
that's a
my
bad one.
gosh.
Okay, so
Oh my gosh, the
some of those,
Timberwolves are so bad. The
yeah, oh my
Timberwolves
god,
are so bad. They are
don't,
horrible. They are
don't
horrible.
even.
It's gonna. I think honestly, and I mean this as on. I mean I just don't mean it in any bad way because it does suck to hear that Karl Anthony Towns is out for like 4 to 6 weeks with that calf strain, and luckily he avoided like a really big injury because when it happened, it was actually kind of scary to see. Like he just started running down the court, and then it turned out to be a just a calf strain, but it looked like it could have been the Achilles popping. But I think they're actually going to get better with him off the floor. Like putting in
I was gonna say to that point, bro. Like, and again, not being like petty towards injury or not caring. Like we do care. We never want guys to get hurt. Obviously, we're basketball fans. We want to see everybody out there. However, it just feels clogged. It feels, like a worse version of what the Pacers dealt with Sabonis and Miles Turner, quite frankly,
yes.
where you got two guys who are just, clogging up the paint and not really helping with spacing defensively. If they're both out there together, they're kind of liabilities on the perimeter. And so, I mean, regardless if it was Rudy Gobert or Karl Anthony Towns, it feels like you can't play them both together. So I really wouldn't be surprised if they played, more fluid and actually got a couple wins with him sideline.
Yeah, me neither. I just think it makes more sense adding in the McDaniels and just more shooting around them. It just doesn't make sense for Towns and Gobert because Towns doesn't have the ability to transition into being a wing defender by any means. So, look, I can harp on them the whole time. I just think that team is absolutely horrible. Giving up so many picks for Rudy Gobert, ugh, ugh. But let's go back to the matchup between Fox and Halliburton here because the big question that I always get when it comes to these two is who impacts winning more, right? Because you can look at De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox is averaging, 24.3 points, 4.9 rebounds, and six assists compared to Halliburton's 19.9 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 11.3 assists. So which player is truly impacting winning more? You go to the standings, the Pacers have won 2 more games. over the Kings. So is that what impacts winning more? So when you watch them, do you think there's a deciding factor of the two of what impacts winning more of the two players?
I don't necessarily think so. I think it's what your team needs. And I'll say this because I get this question. I've got it a lot actually when I was doing like, NBA stuff.
Yeah.
I think like when you look at players who impact winning, you really have to look at like a small group of like superstars who you can point at definitively and say these people like automatically give you 20 wins or whatever. For a long time it was LeBron James. Now it's looking like Luka, Giannis, Embiid, Jokic. And, I'm missing a few, I'm sure, but I'm just saying like I hate when people use that because it's like just because Halliburton and Fox aren't like superstars who are gonna like absolutely lift your team up to like new heights, they can still be winning players. I think they're just in winning situations now, if that makes sense. Like build your team around them, add some pieces, and then obviously the wins will come. So I don't think it's necessarily like you plug this guy in here. Oh, he's gonna any team in the league, he's gonna join them and impact winning more. Like that's not really how it works unless you're a superstar. I think you have to tailor your roster, which they've done, and now you're seeing the results of it because both teams made moves that they had to make their franchise, their respective team better.
You think Miles Turner has finally showcased what he's been wanting to, which is I do have an offensive bag. Give me a little bit more responsibility since Sabonis has left.
I think he's benefiting from having Tyrese Haliburton, who was one of the best passers in the NBA, 40 assists to no turnovers in the last 3 games, only got an NBA history to do that. I think that speaks more to what Miles Turner is doing this season than him taking some massive jump. Like I know he's playing well, he's playing better, but again, like he's in year 8. I don't expect him to be anything he hasn't been, the first 7 seasons. It's just that like anyone, like even if you're playing pickup, it's like you're gonna run harder if you got a guy who's gonna pass you the ball. You're gonna, set a screen harder if you're gonna actually get it on the pick and roll, if you're gonna get it on the pick and pop. And that's what Tyrese does. Like he makes guys feel involved in the game. And so it's easier for you to work harder and maybe put up better numbers because one, you're getting the ball more, and two, you're trying harder just subconsciously because you're not doing it for no reason. So I think that he's pretty pleased. And honestly, I think it's gonna be interesting, man, to see even if they go through with the trade because obviously like coming into the season, all of the hype was okay. These guys are going to the Lakers. Like when is it going to happen? That kind of what it seemed like. But it's like wait a second, you're winning games, you're doing pretty well. I get that you probably wanted to tank from a franchise perspective, but you're not. And do you just blow that up? And if you do, how would that? I mean, how would that go over with Tyrese Haliburton and others who are obviously changing the culture a little bit as far as this new regime? So we'll
Yeah.
see.
I think the Pacers do have a tough decision to make heading into past December 15th. I think the decision will become a little bit more clear of what they're going to
Yeah.
do because I think that's obviously the market is do you want to get that cap space, but who's really eyeing going to Indiana, right? And the team is playing well, and I think you found a backcourt duo that's there for the future. A 20-year-old in Benedict Mathurin, a 22-year-old in Tyrese Haliburton. That looks like studs that you can truly build around for a long period of time. So I like that there. The thing is what does Miles Turner and Buddy Hield fit that timeline? Because Duarte might, but Duarte has been injured, and when he started
Mhm.
this year, he kind of was struggling with his shot. But I
He
do
was.
I do like Duarte's potential. He's a high IQ player. He can knock down threes, but maybe that's just like a Gary Trent Jr. type of player where he just comes off your bench and gets you some types of buckets. So then what are you really building around? And then I think that's where they got to make that decision because let's say Miles Turner, Benedict Mathurin, Tyrese is your core. Could you trade Duarte and picks and get something back that is that for sure next guy that you needed to make that strong playoff push in the East? Or is it time to look back to the rebuild and say, I want Wembanyama? Like this is a big decision that has to be made like within this month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't wait till the calendar to turn and you're just staying afloat at 5'6", 6'7".
I I totally agree, but I also think that a lot of this will come down probably to owner Herb Simon. He's not a tanker by any means, never been in his career. Obviously, last season was their first single digit pick since 1989. I feel like that stat's going to be plugged into my brain until I leave Earth one day. just because I typed it so many times because it's insane to say. For 30 years you didn't have a single digit pick. So let you know, like that's the norm around here is to not go all in on the tank. So I'm glad I'm not making those decisions. I do think that Miles and Buddy probably have to be like a package deal. If you're gonna move one, you got to move the other. Um, Chris Duarte is an interesting one because I do think he's kind of been like the odd man out because of Benedict Matherin's emergence, and so
Yeah.
we'll see, man. But I think that you know Rick Carlisle actually had like this tongue-in-cheek statement last night where he's like, I can see all guys want to trade for Miles Turner and whatever whoever else, and I don't want to trade those guys. And it's like, all right, Rick, like, we'll see if how this looks. Like you said, a couple weeks from now when things kind of shake out even more. But they're in a very weird, like no man's land because it would be so easy if they were just like absolutely crushing it. And it's like, all right, this isn't a fluke. And then on the
They're
other hand,
playing
it would
that
be
in
different if they were
between.
absolutely losing. I
Yeah.
know. So it's like, and that's kind of what it feels like, right? Like if they were to keep it together, they wouldn't be a contender this year, and they wouldn't be a contender, I don't think, anytime soon. They would just be a decent team that could make the playoffs and possibly pretty good if you are able to pick up one more piece. But I think that, to your point, man, like with Indy being in this market, the only way you're really going to get a star, a superstar, is to get them through the draft. Like there's no
Yeah.
way a Benedict Mathurin type a few years from now, when he probably is an all-star caliber player, is coming to Indy. That just doesn't happen here, man. Like you got to get it through the draft. And I mean, as a Kings fan, like how many guys are coming to Sacramento as free agents? No
None.
offense to them at all. I mean that is a diss. I mean, just seriously, like that's how it works in real life when you're talking about markets and things like that.
None. I think Vlade Divac is the biggest name that came through free agency.
Hey, Vladdy
And
was a
when,
bucket.
look, let me tell you this though, if the Pacers decide to not make any moves in terms of trading Buddy or Miles Turner in that Lakers deal, and they start looking on what's out there that truly makes them better. And I
Yeah,
think that's another big situation that they have to think about because look, I've looked at the trade market, right? And can you get a Jay Crowder? Does Jay Crowder really make you better? Is that a vet? And does he fit that timeline, right? Maybe if for some reason the Toronto Raptors decided that it was time to move on and rebuild, and I bring them up a lot because they have so many wings. Do you go after an OG and a newbie? But then do you even have the assets to do that if you're not willing to give up Miles Turner, right? And
I
because
totally agree, man. I totally agree. I just think that again, they're in that weird no man's land where I think the biggest thing for them and the best thing for them will be to be forthcoming about whatever decision they make with their franchise guys. Like, don't sell Tyrese Haliburton one thing and then come back and be like, oh well, actually, we're gonna get rid of Miles Turner and whoever else. Like, whatever you do, be forthcoming about it and be transparent about it. That way, you actually know like this is the vision for your team. Um, so we'll see, man. I think it's gonna be very interesting. And then this draft in particular makes it more enticing than not to maybe wait a year to really try to, I guess, figure things out. Like even if you don't get Wembanyama, this is still a
a
very
deep,
loaded draft class. You could get a
deep,
lot of guys who could be
yeah,
franchise altering guys.
yeah. This draft class is deep for sure. Let's
Oh
go to the other
yes.
side. Let's look at Sacramento, right? Sabonis has been playing well. I think Sabonis has really benefited from Mike Brown and his offensive system running the Princeton and really just being able to facilitate the offense through the half court sets, right? I mean, last night, even in the L against the Phoenix Suns, and look, defense is always going to be the issue. I have no problem with how the Kings are running their offense. They're playing fast, they're playing in control, and they're playing in a game. They're playing in games where I never feel like they're out of it when it comes down to scoring. It always is going to be their defense. But look, Sabonis has
Absolutely.
been amazing. My thing is now, while I'm looking at this team, is there's no real defenders on it. Look, Sabonis is not
Right.
a good real defender, especially in a pick and roll action. That's why they've been playing more zone, which is something that I called for early in the season because he's not bad positionally. He's not bad guarding other big guys that like to bump into, like guarding a Nurkic, for example. He's
Mhm.
not bad at guarding those type of players. But you put him in a pick and roll, especially a high pick and roll, he's going to get beat every single time. De'Aaron Fox, as much as he's improved defensively this season, he's still not a good defender. And I don't care what anybody else says. I'm not saying that he's bad, but the numbers do show it. Like, he's still like at the bottom in terms of defense. I
Hmm.
think he's been stepping up way better. He's been true leader, but it just is what it is. You're not a good defender. Malik Monk, not a defender. Kevin Herter, not a defender. Keegan Murray is a smart learning defender, and I think there's potential there. But then Harrison Barnes is your best defender, but he's kind of at that point now where you can tell that he's a step behind, and he definitely has to use his body a bit more to stay with guys.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I just think that there's time to make a move. And then you talk about Harrison Barnes. Look, I know that the Kings don't want to mess up what they've gelled, right? But if you're a team that's truly looking to finally get past this 16-year drought, and you have an expiring $18 million contract in Harrison Barnes. Look, I know people don't like when you talk about players in terms of assets, but when it comes down to it, the NBA is a business, and these players are each team's assets. So when I look at Harrison Barnes, I see a good player that has $18 million expiring at the end of this season, and the Kings could lose him for nothing. If
Yeah, you
Barnes
gotta
truly doesn't
flip
want
him.
to leave,
Yeah, you got to flip him, man. That's the same reason why I believe Miles Turner, unless he's signed an extension, has to get moved as well. You do not let guys walk in this league, and obviously with Harrison Barnes in particular, he's regressed a bit. Like he's not the Harrison Barnes that we remember from Golden State and all that. However, he's still a wing, and
he's
he's still a
definitely stepped
decent.
up as well over these last few games. You know what I mean? Like, he's definitely
Exactly.
stepped up in his play.
And so if you are like a contending team, we're looking for just an extra, extra body, an extra shooter or something to kind of bolster your roster. That's a guy you might want to go out and get. And I think the Kings will be smart to kind of, look at some deals and figure out, okay, what can we get in return? Because, paying a guy who, similar to what you said about the Pacers in regards to Buddy Hield and others, like maybe he doesn't fit that timeline of your youth movement and everyone else. So maybe you do. And then even from his perspective, like he might love it in Sac or whatever, but he also might realize like, hey, my career is not going to be, what it once was, or, I have more behind me than I have, ahead of me at this point. Maybe I do want to start looking like and figure out, do I want to get on a team that has a chance to really do something? So I think that's smart from their perspective. And again, you've handed the keys to De'Aaron Fox, and I think that you have to do whatever you can to show that you believe in him and believe in what you're trying to do to end this drought, but also be smart about your future because it's like you don't want to keep a guy and end the drought and then he's gone. Also, the next year. So it's this is why they get paid a lot of money. GMs and front office staffs because they have to make these decisions that we get to ridicule and criticize afterward. But obviously there's a lot of factors that go into it.
What do you think about this trade if you're the Kings? You call over to Washington. I think Washington is also another team that's in that in between. Bradley Beal's been good. I think they found a nice little pairing with Porzingis, and I don't know if Porzingis is ever going to really go anywhere at this point, just because I think his
Mm-hmm.
value is exactly where it needs to be, especially with that contract that he's on. You
Mm-hmm.
call over to them, you see, hey, do you want some cap space for the following season instead of waiting 2 years? You do Harrison Barnes and a second round pick for Kyle Kuzma.
I probably would. I probably would. I like Kyle's versatility. I like his size. He's young. He can shoot it. And as someone who watched a lot of Lakers games when they actually won the championship, I think that he's a bit underrated. And I think that that's because he was in that spotlight. And you know how it goes. You play alongside a superstar. The moment you don't play well or mess up, you get scrutinized to the core. But when you get out of that, I guess that realm, especially like Laker land and LeBron land, it's kind of like, oh, like this dude actually is, pretty
Not
skilled, and
bad.
maybe yeah. And I think that he would, and again, you talk about like positional versatility, which is like the biggest thing in this league on the defensive end. He's a guy who can guard multiple positions. Can use that long wingspan to deflect passes, disrupt offenses, and things like that. So I'd say yes. I just don't know if the Wizards do it because again, like you said, they're in that in between phase, and then also with Bradley Beal re-signing there. If you make that trade, what does that say to him? And if their chances of trying to get into the playoffs and do something.
Yeah, my
Even
counter to
though
that would be you're telling him I'm getting $18 million in cap space to go after someone in free agency for you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And similar to what I said about Indiana Saga, like I don't know many players that want to go to Washington with Bradley Beal, but that's why you got to sell it to him, I guess, in that scenario. But I think that if you're the Kings, if it's that or something else, you have to at least pick up the phone, make some calls, and honestly swing for the fences. Like you got the leverage here in this situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Kyle Kuzma is a reasonable target, especially if you're the Wizards and you're still sitting in seventh at 11-10. You still get a player that helps you. I don't think Harrison Barnes goes away from what you're trying to do. Like I think he comes right and fits that perfect position for Kyle Kuzma and what he's doing right now. I just think with Kuzma it fits the timeline for the Sacramento Kings a bit more. You wonder
Exactly.
if he's already showed defensive upside already with Washington. He's improved there as well. What could Mike Brown do when he gets his hands on him, right? And let's see if he can improve him in a way that he improved Wiggins. Just because he's still so young, he can make him take that next step. It also gives you a more prolific scorer, just another player that's out there that can
Yeah.
get you 20 points instead of 15. The extra
Yeah.
5 points will matter in any game. So I just think that's a reasonable target for the Kings. But it's again, there's not much out there. And for Barnes, if you're trading Barnes, I'm always wondering if you have to package together Davion Mitchell. But the more I watch Davion play in just his role, if he's okay with just taking on that 15 to 20-minute role and just say, I'm here not to score. I'm here not to run the offense. I'm here to lock down players and just do whatever I need to do on offense. I still like him in Sacramento. But if there's a wanting for more and potential upside in having the ball in his hands, then I think that you package him with Harrison or you package Harrison with Rashawn Holmes and see where that gets you. Just the market out there is just so confusing right now on who's really available.
Yeah, but I think to your point, and I've heard this a lot, especially again with the draft class that's coming up and how loaded it is. You probably just got to be a bit more patient to see who can be sellers because, and Woj said this, and it's funny when he reports stuff that's like, he has his sources. I'm not doubting that, but it's also like, all right, this makes perfect sense because it's common sense. Like, it's huge loaded draft class is coming up. There's going to be more sellers probably when they realize, like, okay, like our season isn't going as well as we thought. Let's just get rid of, anybody who has some value, tank this thing out and get a shot at a generational player. So I do think we're going to see a lot more availability and, talks and phone calls and inquiries and stuff like that as we get closer to that trade deadline, because by then you'll know, like, okay, what is our season really looking like? And it's still shaking out now. Same thing like for the Pacers. Like I get it, they have a pretty strong start, but if you look up a month from now and it hasn't really gone that well, and they've regressed and they I don't know, go 5-12 or whatever, then you can look back and be like, all right, like, do we make this trade with Miles? Do we make other trades? I think other teams will be in similar scenarios to the point where like you said, that market's dry right now, but it might look differently, down the line. And again, for the Kings, we kind of know their direction and what they want. Like some teams don't even know what they want to do until like they want to win more games or lose more games. At least the Kings know we want to end this drought. We want to be a winner. And I think that kind of gives them at least a little bit of clearer headspace going into the last stages of the season.
Well, let's start looking at the matchup right for our game of the week this week, which is on Wednesday against the Pacers.
We can't have anyone freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure.
Look, so the Sacramento Kings are sitting fourth in offensive efficiency right now, James, while the Indiana Pacers are sitting by themselves. Oh, sorry, sitting in a three-way tie for 15th in offensive efficiency. The offense, I think, is definitely going to be something that's just fine for between the two of them. But it's still one of those things where it's like,
Mhm.
are they a team that can take that next step on any given night? Because they were struggling, obviously, in that Lakers game. They found themselves down by 16, but again, they found ways to turn it on and they knocked down big shots. You flip it over to the other side, and this is where it comes down to this team is going to win the game. and it's their defensive efficiency. As of right now, the Indiana Pacers are sitting alone at 20th place in defensive efficiency, where the Sacramento Kings are back exactly where they were last season at 27th in the NBA in defensive efficiency. You look at these stats here, you see these matchups. To you, what are the 3 keys for the Indiana Pacers to go into Sacramento and get this win against the Kings?
I think obviously the number one key and the engine for this team is Tyrese Haliburton. I would expect him to be emotional. I know he's probably going to say like it's just he might even, well, he's a little more transparent. He might not say it's just another game. I know he'll try to treat it that way, but it's not. Like, just being a human, you're going to feel some emotion. So the biggest key is for your best player to be your best player and be the best player on the floor, and he's been that in several games this season. To your point about how they kind of flirt with disaster, the Pacers do, and how they were down against the Lakers. That's kind of been a theme this season. I believe they have 8 wins this season. They've trailed by double digits and they've come back and won. You don't want to trail, against the Kings, because, as you pointed out, they can score and they'll put you away and they can light it up. And so, as much as appreciate your resiliency, you don't want to keep putting yourself in holes, because I believe if the Kings are a playoff team, as they aspire to be, when you get up double digits in the second half, you got to put them away. And that's got to be the type of win that you have if you think you're serious about, ending this drought. And then the last key for me will be just interior post play. I think that I'm very excited to see Miles Turner and Sabonis. I don't know how much we'll see them matched up and things like that. However, I do think that, the teams that kind of give the Pacers problems, you saw it the other day with Zubac, who went off for like Shaq numbers. I believe he had like 31 and 29 or something like that.
With 3 blocks.
Exactly. And I was there last season, I believe in Minnesota, when, Sabonis had the first 25 rebound triple double since Shaq in the 90s. And so I think that they're going to have to, account for some of the size that the Kings have. And we'll see how that goes. Another, I guess, key thing will be to look at kind of the rookie matchup. And that's always an interesting thing. And Benedict Mathurin has talked his talk, for a very long time. He said, this is the thing, I want to say this real quick. Everyone dug up like I had asked him about LeBron, like maybe, I think this was in July. And for whatever reason, the internet never forgets, right? So they dug it back up and they made it seem like he said it like right before the game yesterday. And it's like, no, he didn't switch his tone up. He said this all summer. Like, I remember talking to him distinctly at Summer League about the rookies. He was like, anybody drafted ahead of me, like, I'm going to make sure everyone knows, like, I'm the best player. I'm the better player. And so he's talking that talk. He's walked the walk. But I also think that Keegan Murray, although he will never talk as much as Benedict Mathurin or maybe be as, outward about it, he's a dog too. And so that's like my fourth cleat. I guess an honorable mention is just that rookie matchup. But I really do think that interior post play, and obviously, not trailing and not getting down by a lot is key, because, man, this Kings team, De'Aaron Fox running the show, you guys can, these guys can shoot it, man, and Kevin Huerter. And I just feel like you're going to play with fire if you, think that you're going to just walk in there and kind of mull around and then stage some epic comeback. Like, those are few and far between, man. Like, that win over the Lakers last night, fantastic. Don't expect it to happen anytime again, this season, because it's just very rare to do that over and over again and call yourself a good team. Like, good teams get up and then put the teams away.
Yeah, LeBron was being very lazy. He let Westbrook run the show at the end of that game. I don't even want to talk about that game no more.
I saw the last play, so I was watching the end, right? And I think that LeBron definitely got caught like ball watching after the offensive rebound. And it was a great shot, but that's the margin for error sometimes in a league where everyone is good. You kind of forget that, but like, hey, that's a clean look for an NBA player. So you'll take that all the time.
It's not just a clean look. It was literally no one was around. Like, I don't care that it showed LeBron was like near him. I mean, here, I have the sound.
Haliburton. This is to win the game. Indiana wins it.
I was stunned. I was stunned in this moment. I'm looking at my screen going, how is this possible? What was Westbrook doing? What was Schroeder doing? Why was everyone on the right side of the court? No one went for the ball when it went in the air, when Miles Turner threw it up and threw it short.
Coach Vince, they ball watching, man. They ball watching.
Yeah, it was bad. So one more time, give us your 3 keys and your honorable mention real quick.
Yeah, three keys I would say obviously was Tyrese Haliburton. I think he has to be the best player on the floor. Going back home, I guess is how he would describe it as far as his home before his NBA career started. I think that interior post play is going to be huge. And I also think that, you can't trail. That's been a kind of a trend for them where they've look terrible for a quarter or a stretch here or there, and then they come back and win. That's not how you sustain winning in this league. And my honorable mention is just a rookie matchup because I do think that Benedict Mathurin's going to get up for this. He's got up for every game, but I think that obviously Keegan, just in a more tempered way, feels the same way. Like I don't think that he's going to back down either. So I'm very interested to see how those two match up. Not like in the game, like versus each other, because they're like different positionally, but just how each other plays. Because no matter what anybody says, they're going to be bonded, forever just because of this being in the same draft class.
Yeah, I think for the Sacramento Kings, we look at it on the flip side here. I think the three keys for me to see the Kings come out with a victory is number one is you can't sag on defense. You can't settle on
Yeah.
defense. This Pacers team will shoot the basketball. They will get
Mhm.
into you and they will find their open looks. They're a very unselfish team. I guess that would also be like know your personnel because there's certain players that you're okay seeing the ball go in the air, and there's a lot on this Pacers team that you don't. Duarte could be back for this game. You don't want to see him shooting the basketball. You definitely don't want to see Miles Turner shooting wide open shots, and for sure you don't want to see nobody Hill shooting no threes right now. That man has been on fire. I'm okay with
Yeah.
Brissett shooting. You can leave Brissett. Let's see what he can do to beat you. So know your personnel and don't sag on shooters is going to be number one for me. Number two is going to be controlling the pace. Look, the Kings like to play fast. They love the space and pace offense, but the one thing that they've been doing as well is controlling the half court set and playing fast in the half court. You do not want this Pacers team to go out on a run, especially with Tyrese Haliburton having the ball in his hands. He facilitates that offense like no other. I've been hearing Zach Lowe, Brian Windhorst, JJ Redick. A lot of them are coming out and calling him the Chris Paul of this generation right now,
Mhm.
saying that he is the Chris Paul in the league. And with Chris Paul and with Tyrese Haliburton, I'm telling you guys, this guy is facilitating this offense like no other, especially when they're moving fast in the fast break. So you have to be keeping control of this pace. And number
Mhm.
two, play within your offense, play within yourself, attack the weak spots. Honestly, I want to see Sabonis attacking Miles Turner, trying to get him into foul trouble because Miles Turner is jump happy. As great of a blocker as he is, all blockers are the same. They like to jump. He's a jumper. Sabonis can take control of that, get in space, show off that muscle, show the reason why I'm that all-star. You know what I mean?
Will
Give
Sabonis get a foul call is my question though, because man, I've watched a couple Kings games and he still gets mauled, and like I'm just like, what does he have to do? Like he has to get like I don't know, he has to lose a tooth or like bleed, and like maybe then he'll get a common foul call, not even a flagrant.
I love when he gets fouled and then that call doesn't happen, runs back down the court, and then he goes up to the ref. He goes, like he'll show the scratch marks on his arm, and he goes, "Not a foul, huh? Not a foul. Okay, okay." Like he always does this.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, oh my gosh, he's so professional about it too. But
Yeah.
man, like, you're not lying. Like, I would legitimately see him in the post game press conference. I'm like, hey, like, Thomas, you good, bro? Like, you need a band aid or something? Like, what's
And
going
this is
on,
how he
man?
responds. He goes, "Yeah, it's just basketball, it's the pain." Um, I like the whistle. I think I deserve to get the whistle, but hey, it is what it is. I'm just getting the pain.
Man, dude,
So
he never shows. The only time I ever got a reaction out of him was when I asked if him and Miles Turner could work. This was when like the trade rumors and all that were really heavy. And he's like, I don't know why you all keep asking that question. We made it work, blah blah. And lo and behold, like it got broken up. Not too long after that. Not saying that I deserve credit. I think it was just writing on the wall. And that was the only time he ever like I guess broke like
he's a
being
great
like
teammate.
a super nice guy. But no, yeah, dude. I hadn't seen this guy in months. I go to summer league. I'm like, what the heck am I going to write today? I saw him chopped it up with him. I was like, hey man, you mind if I just talk to you for a few minutes for like a one-on-one? He's like, yeah, as long as you don't take me over by the fans for where I've got to sign 50 autographs, we good. And I'm like, cool. Like I hadn't known this dude that long at all. And we talked about, getting traded and the idea of going back to Indiana eventually and stuff like that. So Domas is a good dude, man. I think that he handled himself very, very well. And again, I think he was underappreciated, not really by like the Pacers themselves, but just the people in this market. Like, dude, guys who walk in and get double doubles in this league and get 18 and 10 on the regular and can
With
distribute the
5
ball
assists.
like that, exactly, that's not normal. Like that doesn't happen, and I think that was very taking a lot for granted. Like I get it, he can't be the best player on a championship team, but
You
man, if
want
I'm
me at
trying to
number
build a championship
two?
team, I want him. Yeah, I want him. He's good, man. He's a good player, a great player. He's an all star. That doesn't happen for just any player in the league.
Yeah, I
So
yeah, you remember when you were on the show, I've always called him when he was with the Pacers, I was like, he's the Jokic of the East. He literally does. He was pass it. He can bring up the ball. He can do a little bit of everything. I love Sabonis's game. Re-sign in Sacramento. It's a perfect fit between the Ox and the Fox. So back to the keys here. Like I said, know the personnel. Don't space out on shooters. That's combined number one. So just know the personnel. Number two is going to be control the pace, and number three is just attack the weak spots. And you know what those weak spots are going to be. There's defensive holes in this Pacers defense. I think still down below. I know that Miles Turner is statistically a good defender. You have the size, you have the footwork, you have the ability to attack him with your speed and keeping them on their heels. You have to get big men that like to jump into foul trouble and take Miles Turner out of that game. Because Jalen Smith, look, and Jalen Smith is no slouch. Like, the guy can play. The guy can shoot. He can get buckets. I love when he's on. And I always thought that was going to be the transition if they moved away from Turner. And if they believe in Jalen Smith, then Miles Turner does kind of become expendable. But I still think Miles Turner is a few years above him in terms of just advancement of their game. But getting Miles Turner into foul trouble and just consistently attacking that hole there, and Fox truly attacking Tyrese and seeing if he's improved as a defender and seeing if he could stop him is going to be huge. And I can't wait to see Davion on him as well.
Yeah, I like this because you're gonna know probably a little more tendencies and things like that because you've spent years with these guys. One thing I will say about De'Aaron is I just like everyone else who's just a pure basketball fan, I guess you love to see the steps that he's taking, and I do think you look at his numbers, and I think that sometimes we can look at raw numbers and oh, he's having a great season, he's averaging, he's averaging 24, he's averaging 24, 5 and 6. But then you look at the efficiency that he's doing it with, and I'm like, whoa, this guy's he's 50, 82, and then he's 38 from three. 52 from the field, again, 82 from the line, 38 from the three. That's all NBA numbers. I know we're talking about all-star appearances, that's an all NBA type of season. And if he keeps that up, I think that you really have to look and say, this isn't just, a guy who's just figured it out or a pretty good guard. No, that's one of the best in the league that you're looking at every night. And he said it himself. And I think one of the most mature answers I heard recently about him was when he was asked about his speed, which was the biggest thing about him coming out of college the first few years. And he's like, it's not about that anymore. It's about pace. I can decelerate, accelerate, get to my spots, do whatever I want. And he said it so nonchalantly, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, let them folks know you can do whatever you want out there because he can.
Yeah, that's swag in that answer. He said they asked him. The question was asked do you still believe you're the fastest player in the league? Because he did the fast break dunk on Jaden Ivey. He's like, I use it as a weapon. It's in my toolbox, but I use it when needed. But as of right now, he's like, I don't really care about that anymore. That's just a label. Before I did, but it's just a label. You know what I mean? He's like, I don't feel like anyone could stop me. That's what his answer was. I just don't feel like anyone can stop. I can get to anywhere, all my spots. And the man is doing it, bro. The man is doing it. The Vegas odd makers are already going to be out on this game. And I think, honestly, with the defensive efficiency numbers that are there, the Kings struggling over these last few games. They're on a 3-game skid. They're definitely going to need to improve somewhere. And I think this game turns out to be the Kings are still 3-point favorites because they're at home.
I can see that. I don't think see the Kings winning just because of you mentioned you're on the skid, and I think that you kind of found a lot about your team. Again, you don't want to play too much into getting up for a game, but you do. And I think that if you're able to kind of end that skid against an opponent that obviously a lot about, and as far as Buddy and Tyrese, a lot of respect for, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they pulled it off just to kind of, get their season back on track and bring the Pacers down to earth, I guess, after, the Laker high. But I wouldn't be surprised at all, man. Like that's a team that, again, I think that they want to show like, we weren't swindled. And then I feel like when you hear that enough, and people can say they don't hear whatever, like you feel disrespected because it's like, dude, like we're still over here hooping as well. Like you guys thinking like this one guy left and we're terrible. Like LeBron left, Cleveland, and we're just awful now. Like, no, those guys have pride too. So I think that that's going to factor in, and I would not be surprised, man. I'm excited to watch it just because.
That's the
Yeah,
game
man,
of the night. That's the game of the night. No joke.
absolutely, and that's the best thing about working in the NFL now. Like I used to miss all these NBA games because I was working like the Pacers games, and now like I work throughout the week obviously, but only do one game a week, and I get to watch all the NBA I want, and it's awesome.
Hey man, I remember you were out. I think you were out in Milwaukee because we were getting ready to do another show where
Yeah,
Kings
bro.
and the lights go out because you're in the media room and the lights go out. Man, that was
Oh
funny.
yeah. My sleep schedule's a lot better these days,
I
man.
bet. I bet.
I got a routine now and everything. I can actually like cook something green every now and then. Oh, life is good. Life is
So
good. But
So I want to hear a definitive answer. Let's say the Kings are 3-point favorites here in this game. Who do you have winning this game? Pick one. You got to pick one. Kings, Pacers, Tyrese, Fox. Who goes home with the win?
I'm gonna go Fox, and I'm like I'm like a Pacers fan now, man. It's crazy, but I'm gonna go Fox. I think that the Kings are gonna get them, and I think that that's gonna be. And I'm not saying that just because I'm on some Kings podcast. Like I really do think that they're a really good team. I think they're just probably going to catch the catch the Pacers slipping a little bit and kind of bring them down to earth, and we'll see how that goes. Sure, it's going to be a nice tribute to Tyrese, but after that, the tribute is not going to be with a win, I don't think. So we'll see.
So dare I say, it could be time. It could be time to light the beam.
This dude, oh my gosh, man! And I want to say I love that. By the way, that is the most
hold
thing.
Light the beam,
bro! Light the beam!
Light the beam! Light the beam! It's time.
Oh my gosh, you guys are ridiculous.
Yo, tell me why the Kings are trademarking Beam Team.
I saw that, bro. You know what? Like, go ahead, man. Have fun with it. I know people kind of complain about this. They're like, oh my God, well, this is taking it too far. Like, nah, bro. Have fun with it. The game is fun. They're having fun. They're playing well. And big shout out to Mike Brown, man. I feel like that dude is truly a player's coach. Like, I don't know. Looking back in time, the way he does things as far as like how he coaches guys, I could just see him, coaching at any level and having the same amount of passion.
Yeah, man. I think that Mike Brown has truly found his place here in Sacramento. He has the ears. He has the voice of the locker room right now. Everyone is buying into what he's saying, and he has the respect of everyone in that locker room. The Kings are playing better. Now, for all those people that say the light is out, look, I actually called, right? And I called in over there, and they just said the light bulb went out. That's all that happened. The light bulb went out. It's a brand new bulb. It's hard to get it. It's getting shipped in. They think it's going to be here by Wednesday.
Boy, got some exclusive bulbs over there, bro.
Yeah, it was just a little bulb, you know what I mean? But, I think on Wednesday we're going to be able to light the beam.
Oh, my God.
I think on Wednesday that's going to be a thing, James. Oh, man, I appreciate you so much, James, for coming on the show. Before I let you go, I know you're not doing the Indiana Pacers beat, but I know you're staying close to this team. Tell the fans out there where they can find you online, the work that you're still doing with The Athletic, covering the Colts, everything like that. Talk to these fans a little bit, James. Let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, man. As you can see, the ad name is Romeoville Kid. I'm from Romeoville, Illinois. Take a lot of pride in where I'm from. You can check out anything that I've written recently about the Colts. I actually did a piece on Jelani Woods. He played at Virginia, and I talked to him about what happened at Virginia. He lost a couple people that he knew in that shooting over there, so he got pretty candid about that. I think it kind of puts a lot of things in perspective. But check that out. It'll make you, make you want to go hug people that you know and love. And beyond that, man, I think you just keep enjoying this Kings Pacers NBA season because there's a lot of fun things going on. I think we're seeing just around the league, man, just a changing of the guards. It seems like that new era is coming in, and it's fun to see.
Let me ask you this: is Tyrese gonna get that? Is Tyrese gonna get that statue like you said? They view him as. I remember the last time you were on the show, you said that they're viewing him as the Peyton Manning of this franchise.
I'm gonna say no, man. They ain't even built the Reggie statue yet, so they got some work to do
They
out
got
here.
some work to do
They
out
don't build
there.
statues out here, so they got to work on Reggie first, and then we can get Tyrese possibly in there. We'll see, man. And I'll probably be the only one in there yelling about how DeMontis at least deserves I don't know, a bobblehead night or something for being a 2-time All-Star here. So
I'm gonna ask you a question about the Colts. Are you happy with their choice of interim head coach?
I was very critical of it. I would say happy is a weird phrase. I don't know. Like I'm indifferent about hirings and stuff like that when it comes to like who he is as the person. He's a good dude, but I do think that
It was head
it
scratching.
was unprecedented for him to be hired as the head coach. Didn't have the resume, in my opinion, to earn that job, to get that job. I actually wrote that he did not earn the job. However, he's been a really good guy, classy, and I think that regardless of who the coach was going to be, who the starting quarterback was going to be, Matt Ryan or Sam Ehlinger, the Colts are the same old Colts, man. They can't score and they can't win because of it. Quite frankly, 4-7-1. Covered my first NFL game, Vince, was a tie. The first tie in Indianapolis Colts history was my first game in the NFL. So, like, what are the chances of that, man? Just crazy stuff. It's been a crazy season.
There's minute 30 left in the game. You have 2 timeouts. Matt Ryan gets sacked. Jonathan Taylor runs on 3rd and 3, gets nowhere. The clock is still ticking. You're down by 7 points. That's going to be our show today, guys. That's going to be our show today.
He did say today, in his defense, he's like, I watched the tape, and I should have called timeout. Wish I had that one back. Because last night he was kind of defending it. We were all like, wait a second.
No.
But he had a little clarity this morning. So, but again, that's growing pains. More experienced coaches have botched, end of game drives and timeouts and stuff, but it just obviously does not help the Colts' chances. And I think that we're in for a bumpy ride at the end of the season. But hey, man, I just write what happens. I feel like I'm just enjoying the ride and trying to get better as a writer. And
yep.
I don't know, man, enjoying seeing you light the beam and stuff like that. So I'm just floating through this thing.
For sure. James Boyd of The Athletic, covering the Indianapolis Colts, former beat writer for the Indiana Pacers, joined us here on the King's Court, making his amazing return to the King's Court podcast. James, I always appreciate when you come on this show, man. I always have a great time talking with you, man. So I do appreciate you. Everyone go follow him on Twitter at RomeoVilleKid, as you guys can see right there under his picture, under his face there. I've been your host today. My name is Vince Miracle. You guys can follow me on all social media platforms of at VM Center. As you can see in my top right corner, this show is presented to you by SB Nation's SacktownRoyalty.com. Bookmark the site, guys. The writers on this crew team, everyone that I'm working with, they've been amazing. We got more game recaps coming. I got an article coming out later today about Mike Brown and his presence here in Sacramento.
That boy working.
Yeah, man, we've been working over here, man. It's been a lot of fun. And then also shout out to the sponsor, RateCrushers.com. I didn't show the commercial today. The conversation just took over, and I love when that kind of happens. You know what I mean? But look, I just wanted to know one thing. Yeah, you said it? Okay, I got you. We're going to light the beam. We're going to light the beam. You know what I mean? We're going to light the beam just one more time. It's about to happen. You know what I mean? If you guys haven't done so yet, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Look out for all of us on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever you get your guys' podcast. Shout out to James Boyd one more time for joining us on the show. And until next time, Sacramento Kings fans,